Welcome back. In this lesson, we're going to focus on value and why it matters. You'll be learning about value variations, the highlights, shadows, and midtones, how to change values with layers, and removing color when we make that inevitable mistake. So let's get started with looking at value. Here's a value scale, going from light to dark with midtones in the middle. What's important to remember is that a good composition has all three. It makes the work look three-dimensional. Now let's look at about how value works in a couple of my paintings. This is a painting of some white roses in a white jug. Here we have a little coral rose. What I like to do is throw some black in the background right away. I like to establish my darks because that makes my subject pop. And then if my subject is midtones, then I know where to put highlights to make it even more three-dimensional. Right here in the corners, in the upper left, in the upper right, and even at the bottom, I've darkened it even more. So that just forces the center to really come alive. This is a three-dimensional look with the darks, with the midtones here. I see the grapes as midtones, this peach flower is a midtone, even the purple flowers in the back. But the highlights are really what make it happen for me. And that would be the white flower, the streaks of highlights on the white jug, and even the white highlights on the grapes. So when you put together a composition, it's a good idea to have all three, to have your darks, to have your midtones, and to have your highlights to really make it pop off the page. Now let's look at the purple hibiscus. This is the project that we're using for this lesson. I'm actually told by a friend that this is a double rose of Sharon. This is growing in my backyard and it's very beautiful. So I took a picture of it and I decided, well, it's kind of light, so how can I make the value work in this composition? Again, a black background, darkening the leaves. So if you take a look, we've got the black background. The leaf is a little darker, in fact it's very dark, but how can I push my subject forward? Well, the way I pushed it forward was lightening the leaves. You can see that, lightening the petals. You can see the white over here, and you can see especially this lighter petal right here in the center, and that really makes it pop. That makes this subject come alive, and I would say it's fairly three-dimensional. We've got the dark center, we've got the light petal, the midtones of course are the lilac petals, and even the water drops project it forward off that dark background. So that's how value combined to create a three-dimensional composition here. So value can start in your photograph. Let's say you take a picture of a few flowers, you look at it and you say, gee, it's all in the midtones. You can change that. You have the ability to change that. Darken a few leaves, put some great highlights in there, strengthen your midtones a little bit, but you can create the values yourself if your photos are a little weak. So have fun trying that. Now let's talk about adding value in your piece and in my piece. I'm going to refer to the purple flower that we're working on, and I'm going to show you that I'll start at this petal right here. There are some nice variations here. We have the midtone right here. We've got the shadow that's cast by this upper petal, and then we have this unusual looking petal that's very, very white, so that will be considered our highlight. So I'll start with this right here. I'm going to refer to my notes. I generally do that initial color checking that I showed you in an earlier lesson to figure out what pencils to use. So I look and I see what the pencils are, and I'm going to get started now. I'm going to start with my blue Violet Lake pencil to just lay down a little foundation because we do see some blue in this photograph, as we talked about earlier. I'll cover this. And remember, if you don't get that combination right, it's okay. It's just a flower. In fact, sometimes my color schemes are completely off, but that's all right. As an artist, you have that opportunity to make any changes you like. I'm now throwing some lilac over that to bring it back to the purpliness of the flower. Again, keep those pencil crumbs off your paper because they could get embedded in your painting, and then they look odd because they look like freckles and they're awfully hard to get out. Okay, now what I have is a nice purpley blue look. I'm going to use my value viewer now and compare. So, how does that look? Okay, well, yeah, it's a lot lighter. So I think maybe I'll add a little bit more purple with a little bit more pressure before I blend it all together. Okay, now I'm happy with it. I'm going to take my white pencil. I call this my magic pencil because it is now going to melt those colors together. It's going to come up with a lighter hue, but it's going to be very pretty, and upon which we can add some nice colors and turn this into a painterly finish. This is all about texture too. And as you can see, these colors are now coming together into a lovely hybrid color with a nice texture. We're starting to get that slick texture with a very polished look. Okay, now what you see is my mid-tone. This is a mid-tone, and now I'm going to throw some dark color on top of that to create the shadow underneath that petal. So I'm going to use violet. No, I'm going to use Parma Violet, which will start it out. And now to deepen it even more, I'll use violet. And again, this is a technique I'm showing you. I do tend to take a very, very long time with this, getting it all nice and perfect, but I want to show you that this can be done fairly quickly. What I did is I just added a little bit of violet blue to make it pop. Again, taking this magic pencil, I'm going to make it all come together, polish it, smooth it, and turn it into a lovely, lustrous looking petal with a shadow. You're probably wondering why I'm choosing the pencils that I'm choosing, and I've pretty much figured those pencils out in the beginning. Like an oil painter figures out his palette, I've played around with my pencils on my initial white paper. And so I'm looking at the photograph and I'm seeing a little bit of blue in that shadow. So I look in my pencils and I look for a purpley blue, and I grab that one, and that was why I chose that pencil, which is called violet blue. As you can see, I press down with this white pencil to lighten my mid-tone even more so there can be a good contrast against that shadowed area. And now you can see how the petal is coming to life. It's looking very lustrous, and you can see that shadowed area. Okay, now I will show you. You can take a look at the inside and how that's very, very dark. And how can we create that dark and not just use a flat black? Well, there's a great pencil for that, and this comes in handy all the time. It's called Tuscan Red, and it's my go-to pencil for deepening shadows without hitting it right away with black. So let's take a look, and let's see, that's right about here. I'm going to show it to you in this section right here. So I'm using my Tuscan Red, and this is going to give us a nice dark value. Add a little black to it with some pressure. I would say this pressure is about a 4 out of 5. And now I'm going to do a 5 out of 5. I'm going to burnish with my Tuscan Red. Remember, don't be afraid if that pencil tip breaks. Sometimes it just scares you. Pop. Okay. So we've got that extreme dark right here, and it will really work against this light petal that you'll see and this little white doodad thing in the center. So you can see that we've got some black and red going on here, but I think I want to tie in that to our purple color scheme. So I'm going to pick up my violet pencil and just give a top coat over that with violet. You may not even be able to see it, but I know it's there, and I know that we're changing the hue just ever so slightly, giving it one final layer of burnish. So that's good. We're going to stay with that. So I'm going to head over to the lighter petal right here, and at this point I'm going to refer to my notes, the quick sketches I had done initially, just to refresh my mind on what colored pencils I'm going to use. So I'll just take a look, and I had done a little quick study over here. So, okay, Blue Violet Lake, Lilac, Blue Violet Lake, that's pretty much the color palette for this whole thing. That's our established initial layers. So I'll head back to that and pick up and start. Only this time, because that petal is so light, my strokes will be very, very light. Again, that whisper stroke. I like to make my strokes in the direction of the petal. It's a good idea because the more color you lay down and the more directional that it is, the more it's going to really look like a petal when you're through. So let's just keep going in this direction. My strokes are light. Okay. Again, I'm picking up lilac, going over it, and this is where we're turning it into a bit of a purpley color. This is my foundational layer. I would say this is my palette, pretty much for the whole flower. My initial palette are the three pencils, or the two pencils that I've used. And in order to get the value shifts, I use a few darker pencils. We've got violet, violet blue, and Parma violet. Those come in when I'm doing the shadows. So you'll see even in this petal that I will be doing that. And back to the Blue Violet Lake. Light pressure, just kind of skimming over the petal in the direction of the petal. And now I have something to work with. 3 layers is the minimum that I will use before I start taking that white pencil and asking it to do its magic. And that's what we're going to do right now. This white pencil is going to blend it all together, and I'm going to press a little harder initially because it is such a light petal. Starting from the inside, you can see how the wax, the pressure and the wax being heated up are just melting those 3 layers of color together. This is where you will get the pencil crumbs, and you'll be using that an awful lot, but it's good to keep your paper clean. Okay, so my point just broke. Sharpen it and keep going. I tend to use small little elliptical strokes. This makes it a smoother surface instead of just cross, 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 line, line, line. I don't really like that. I want it to be a fully blended section. So compare how this petal is looking with the same 3 undercolors versus the petal below it. This petal is much lighter, and that's what we're going for. It's pressure, lighter layers, same pencils, but pressure, 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 lighter layers. And I'm also changing the texture of the surface. We're going for that sleek, polished look. So as you can see, we've got the lightest lights right here. We've got a fairly significant dark with this shadow, and we've got the mid-tone, and that's what we're going for. So I'll be continuing to work on this petal and finishing it up. The next thing we're going to talk about is removing color. When you make a mistake, how do you get rid of that color and start over again? There are times when you wish that you had made a different color choice, or perhaps you laid down some color that was just completely wrong, or maybe you got a mark on your paper. What are your alternatives? How can you restore that? So there are 3 techniques that I'm going to show you. And the first one is using this really cool eraser called General's Tri-Tip. Picks up color very well. I'm going to start with a couple swatches that I have here. I used orange, and I'm going to apply a little bit of pressure, and look how great that is. That's about 2 layers of pressure. And you can still see it, yes, but you can start over with whatever color that you choose. So that is a nice option. The second option is something called mounting putty. You can get this at Staples, Office Max, Home Depot. And you're going to pull a little piece out, just kind of roll it into a ball, and then smack it. Bam, just like emerald. Just get that color up, and it will come up. And this is really great if you have even 10 layers. It'll take up maybe 3 or 4. And I love this little thing. It's also good for getting out a little aggression too. Okay, so the third technique, let's say you've got a burnished section, which means you've got a lot of layers, you've got a lot of pressure, and you've got a lot of paper tooth that has been depressed. You're in trouble. So now this orange, I realized that should have been pink. What do I do? Okay. Well, I'm not going to use the eraser because that might smear it, but I am going to reform my little mounting putty, my Fun Tack ball, and start smacking it. I know you're thinking I'm having a little bit too much fun, but I got off about 3 layers. Now I take my white pencil, again, I call it my magic pencil, sharpen it up, and I'm going to burnish over that, really take down that orange hue. And yep, I broke that point. You're going to break some points here, but that's okay because we're going to press down. Press, press, press. Try to restore that lighter color. Get rid of the crumbs. Keep going. My point is very blunt now. Okay. Now let's see if I can put that pink over it. And I'll have to use a little bit of pressure because I've really pushed down the tooth. But here we go. Is it going to work? Sure it is. We now have a nice pink petal for our flower. It is affected by a little bit of that orange underneath, but we can call it a pink petal. To recap, in this lesson we learned about value variations, highlights, shadows, and midtones, creating value, and removing color when we make that inevitable mistake. Your homework is to experiment with white pencil burnishing and layering color on flower petals. In our next lesson, we'll learn to make your flowers pop off the background and add dimension. See you there.